Tennessee's NCAA punishments have been announced. There is no postseason ban despite hundreds of NCAA violations. Jeremy Pruitt, the former Vols coach, did not get off so light. 6-year show cause. Basically, if he's hired within the next 6 years, the new school has to show why he won't be suspended for the entire first season. Brent Hubbs from VolQuest.com joins us now to talk about these penalties, which, Brent, this feels like a best case scenario for Tennessee with no bowl ban.
Yeah, absolutely, Andy. I mean, that's what Tennessee was fighting. That's why they went to Cincinnati and didn't accept the deal. Tennessee Director of Athletics, Danny White, who wasn't here for any of this, by the way, and Chancellor Donde Plowman, who did remove Jeremy Pruitt from his seat, said throughout the whole 30-month process, we're not going to comment on the investigation. You know, the NCAA has a job to do, da-da-da-da-da-da. But we're going to do everything we can to protect this current student athlete. And the belief was that the current student athlete should not be punished for something they were not responsible for. It's the only comment they made. We're not accepting a bowl ban. They would have appealed. They would appeal to whatever court level they needed to, if they had to prevent the bowl ban from happening. As a result of no bowl ban, now they can continue with their mantra in recruiting to all their fans, to their current players, everybody. You're in the business of chasing championships. There's nothing to block us from chasing a championship. Let's go chase the championship. And that was Tennessee's goal from the get-go throughout this whole process.
Now we do the math because there's an $8 million fine. And obviously Tennessee had to pay quite a bit to its attorneys to handle this case. It was a $13 million buyout for Jeremy Pruitt if they just bought him out. They ended up firing him for cause. And that's the part I'm interested in, because it feels like it's a legitimate debate of, should you have just fired him and paid him off, and maybe there's not a motivated whistleblower or your own law firm doing this investigation, or do it for cause, and you may end up paying the same amount of money, but then it's all over.
And it's a great question. And for the financial people, it will be a debate that carries on for however long you want to carry it on for. Here's where I come down on this, because I've been asked this question. I've thought about it a lot since, when you're sitting in Cincinnati for 2 days at a hearing, you have a lot to think about when you're sitting in the lobby watching people walk by, trying to read their faces. What does it mean? But here's the thing. So you have someone who didn't go to the athletics director. They went to the chancellor in an email and said the following is going on in your athletics department and your football program. If you just ignore that person doesn't go to the NCAA, right? They don't go to the president.
Right, and that becomes
then
a
all
huge
of a sudden
problem.
The chancellor's out of a job. Well, now you've got lack of institutional control, because you have a cover-up at the highest university level, at the chancellor level. Donde Plowman, in a brief period of time, had a decision she had to make. As a leader, you're caught in those crossroads. What decisions are you going to make? Northwestern had a really hard time last weekend at that crossroads deciding what to make, right? They went left, and then they went U-turn, came back, and made a right turn at the four-way stop and decided what they were going to do. She said from the get-go, this is what we're doing. We're cleaning house. We are ridding everybody of this. We are starting over. My contention is for Tennessee in 30 months to be free and clear of that entire tenure of Jeremy Pruitt and all those people, okay, to be at 70,000 plus season ticket sales, to have won the Orange Bowl, to have a coach that's given you an identity that you think can take you to, quote, the championship level, was it worth $8 million or even $10 million? Was that worth it to you? My answer to that would be yes. I think that Tennessee is in a much better place now than they were when they fired Jeremy Pruitt 30 months ago. Did it cost them a lot of money? Yes. Donde Plowman had a decision to make, the chancellor. Her decision that she made was to protect the University of Tennessee and to protect the current student athletes of that department, of that program. She chose to go that route aggressively, I might add.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, how many chancellors, Andy, at a press conference go, I'm appalled at the number of violations
Right.
and to the degree of cover up. The point being, she aggressively said they cheated, and they cheated in a bad, bad way. And I'm mad, and I'm taking everybody out. I walked out of that press conference, Andy, going, who is this woman and what is she doing? Like, nobody does that at a press conference. But she felt the need to do it. She aggressively did it, cleaned house, and through a lot of money, a lot of heartache, and a long period of time, they're standing on the other side with what I think is probably the best case scenario for them.
It definitely feels like the best case scenario for Tennessee. It's obviously not for Jeremy Pruitt. Now, he has hired attorneys already. He has said, I'm going to defend my rights here. Do you think that's going to happen? Do you think there'll be a time when Jeremy Pruitt sues Tennessee? Because right now you look at these penalties and you think, okay, his chances to be a college football coach again, they're pretty slim. So he has a lot of incentive to drag somebody into a lawsuit right now. Do you think that's going to happen?
Well, I think the question is from his legal people, based on after 2 days in Cincinnati, what leg does he have to stand on in a lawsuit? I don't know the answer to that. I'm not saying he doesn't or he does. That's for his legal people. I'll say this: when I left Cincinnati after 2 days up there, day one, I won't say Jeremy Pruitt had a pep in his step when he left to get on the elevator, because he didn't. But he looked like he had survived the day pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Day two, he looked like a beat pup. He looked
Yeah.
like he'd been run through the ringer. I just don't know if there's an attorney, and if Jeremy Pruitt wants to spend that amount of money to try to go win some money, because he's already spent a bunch of money for his legal defense for the NCAA. I don't know the answer to that. You know, he's threatened a lawsuit before with Tennessee. It never got anywhere. So I don't know the answer. I think it would be hard for him to win a lawsuit after this ruling now.
Well, his Tennessee contract pretty clearly said if you commit major NCAA violations, we can fire you for cause. And there's a 127-page report of major NCAA. Basically, for those who don't know what the case is about, it seems like they were running unofficial visits like they were official visits where they were paying for them. And then when COVID hit and you can't have anybody on campus, they were still running these unofficial official visits. So there's, hotels, there's some brunches in there, there's some trips to the nail salon. That's what we're talking about here.
Well, and you also had the head coach's wife, okay, who was involved in this too. She was handling it. So
Right.
can Jeremy Pruitt really go in a legal defense to someone and say, I didn't know anything about it? Well, the person you're living with was doing some of the work for it. I mean, like, where did
Right.
she get the idea from?
Right.
I think that part's hard. So again, I don't know where he's going to go. I know where Dondi Plowman stands, the chancellor stands on this deal. She's made it very clear from the get go he's not getting any money, and so we'll see. I don't know that there's a smoking gun for Jeremy Pruitt to play, back towards the university for any kind of settlement or any kind of suit. But that would be the only next turn, and that doesn't really bother fans or concern fans. The other thing that I think fans have to be made aware of, you see the scholarship reductions of 28, and the first inkling is, okay, you're going to play with in the 50s when you play football, 50 scholarship guys.
Not how that works.
Not how it works.
Yep.
It's not how it works. They've got 28 over the probationary period. And Andy, they're already at 18. They've self-imposed 18. They've got 10 more to get through. It's a very manageable deal. And Josh Heupel deserves some credit for this, right? So you come in year one, you lose 30 guys to the transfer portal. And when you get there, like, they're leaving, as you're hitting the press conference, they're diving into the portal, right and left, before you even get a chance to meet him. He did not chase a bunch of numbers in year one. They played shorthanded. It was by design to help him get over what he's long called a speed bump, which is this investigation. And because that, they make the back end of this speed bump very manageable in terms of scholarship reductions and all those things. So it was a smart move on his part not to try to load up in year one in the transfer portal to put himself in a bad situation in year 3, 4, and 5.
Well, and it's really interesting because I think back to that period, December 2020 and January 2021, and all of the things that look like they could be horrific for Tennessee, they actually did kind of turn them to their advantage. You know, I can be cynical about it and say, well, if Jeremy Pruitt had been winning, they wouldn't have maybe responded this way. But it worked out nicely for them that he was losing. They could get rid of him, not have to pay him. But we thought that the guys diving into the portal was going to cripple the program for years. And all it did, it turned out, was allow them to kind of proactively manage a penalty they were going to get.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you can thank Hendon Hooker for that, which is Jeremy Pruitt's greatest gift to Tennessee. When you look at it at the end of the day,
Yeah.
Andy, the greatest gift that he gave him is Hendon Hooker, which is kind of crazy. But they don't jumpstart this as fast if they don't hit on a quarterback. And they take a guy from Virginia Tech that nobody really believes in or thinks very good, and he's the perfect fit for Josh Heupel in the system. And suddenly now you're well ahead of the curve. If you would have said, I mean, nobody would have believed that when Josh Heupel stood at the podium, still wearing a mask, and said, we're going to chase championships. And you thought, okay, well, we've heard that speech. We'll see where he's at in 5 years. And you're going to tell me less than 2 years later, they're number one in the college football playoff rankings? I mean, it goes to show you it's all about hitting on a quarterback. Yeah. And they hit on the quarterback that Jeremy Pruitt left them. Here's the other thing Jeremy Pruitt did at the hearing in Cincinnati on the last day when they wrapped things up. Jeremy Pruitt stood up to that committee as they were finishing up, and he said to them, I've talked to multiple people who confirm this, he said to them, guys, you do whatever you need to do, but there is no reason in the world the current players on that football team should be punished in any way, shape, or form. They didn't have anything to do with any of this.
Very interesting.
They do not deserve a postseason ban. They should be able to go play for a championship if they can earn that right. They do not deserve to be punished for this. And he absolutely stood up and said that after being drugged through the mud for 18 and a half hours over a 2-day span. Did it make a difference, Andy? Probably not. Certainly didn't carry the weight of Greg Sankey being there for 2 days, as much. But I thought it was an interesting move by Jeremy Pruitt to stand up and do that and to say that as he left.
Well, and I saw the Committee on Infractions did note that the change in how we view this stuff had an effect on whether they got a bowl ban. They probably would have gotten one a few years ago, but they've made it an effort essentially to not punish future players for something somebody did years ago. And they said Tennessee's cooperation in this thing was probably what kept them from getting a bowl ban, which I know there's a lot of Missouri fans going, wait a second, we cooperated and you still gave us a bowl ban. What the heck? But that does seem to be the thing now, where if you do cooperate, maybe that's not going to happen to you.
Well, and that's the frustrating thing for a lot of institutions out there with the NCAA. And I don't want to get on a tangent about that, but you look at this on the surface, nobody who's currently at Tennessee had any involvement with what was going on. All those people were gone at all levels. I mean, the recruiting office, the student workers in the recruiting office, the AD, the coaches, everybody is gone. So you say, all right, it makes no sense for them to give a bowl ban. It's a laydown. They're not getting a bowl ban. Then you go and look at, as you mentioned, Missouri, and you look at Oklahoma State in basketball. There's some kids in the 8th grade who were playing basketball in the 8th grade when their transactions took place, and they didn't get to play in the NCAA tournament. So you always had that in the back of your mind of like, well, you never know because it's the NCAA. Tennessee couldn't have been more cooperative. When they did Zoom interviews, when their legal firm from Kansas City and that group out there did interviews, they sent the Zoom link to the NCAA. They listened to every one of them. The NCAA's overhead cost in this case was minimal because they didn't travel the country and have to do interviews. They listened to everything being done. Tennessee could not have been more cooperative. Was that the difference maker? I don't know. Was Greg Sankey a difference maker? I don't know. Point being, Tennessee wanted the ability to come out of this on the other side to say, hey, we can play for a championship. We can manage the rest. What we can't manage is the publicity of not being able to play for a championship. We can't manage it with our current players who would have been eligible to leave immediately. Mm-hmm. We can't manage it in recruiting, and we struggle to manage it with our fan base. Instead, they're playing with a full deck this fall and a quarterback everybody's excited for. They've sold 70,000+ season tickets, and they're recruiting at a top 10 national level right now. It's a win for Tennessee, Andy.
It absolutely is. This is the best case scenario they could have gotten. And well, now they can look forward to a postseason this season. Now they just got to win the games and get there. Brent Hubbs, thank you so much.